Let me show you 3 things you can start doing today to position your teenager, to ensure that they are well positioned to become a successful, capable, well-rounded adult for today's world. And when I say well-rounded, I'm not just talking about, a teenager who grows up into an adult who is employable or who is able to create wealth and create jobs. I'm also talking about emotional well-being. I'm talking about a balanced life. 3 things you can start doing now to position them for that. Step number 1, emotional intelligence. Now, you need to learn to help your young person build emotional intelligence, not just academic intelligence or even skills in things like football, basketball, or any other thing you've enrolled them for. Now, all of those things are very, very important, but emotional intelligence. Why am I emphasizing emotional intelligence? A very good thing that would pull us and expose why this is important is the recent match between France and Paraguay. Anyone who watched that match, I was watching that match and screaming at the television because I just can't for the life of me understand how Mbappe was able to manage the pressure he was under. The Paraguayan players put him under immense pressure. As you can see, he was smiling at that end after the push, the hit, and all of these things that happened. He still had the mind to be smiling. Now, if you compare that to something that happened exactly 20 years ago, and interestingly, to the same country, France, one of the greatest players, in my opinion, of all times, Zinedine Zidane, something happened to him at the World Cup of 2006, the final, where they played against Italy. And for anyone who is familiar with what happened, he ended up headbutting Marco Materazzi, I think that was his name, ended up headbutting him, and that created a lot of, debates in the world of football. For some people, they thought it was justified because Zidane said his mom was insulted. The guy said something derogatory about his mom. The guy, I think, said it was about his sister, not his mom. Now, prior to this incident, Zidane, in my opinion, is one of the best footballers ever. And I still see him as this idol of mine because the kind of passes the guy used to complete then, he's just unbelievably good. But that inevitably contributed to the end of his career because after that, I think he never played in international football anymore, and that tainted his image forever. Now, similar situations, someone was able to manage his emotions. How he did it, I don't know. I don't think I would have been able to do what Mbappe did in that situation. I can't trust myself to be able to do that. In fact, I've seen myself in situations and I've come out worse than that. How he did it, I don't know. But the fact remains that because he was able to do that, he held his head high. France finished great, and everyone sees him now as an exceptional human. And that affects everything we do in life. In this age and time where young people are under so much pressure, online pressure, pressure from everywhere, some of them easily break under those pressures. They find themselves in work environment and they're very flaky, little things, they just break down. Life throws a few challenges here and there and they are out of it, not interested anymore. Emotional intelligence. The 2 words there are familiar words, emotional and intelligence. When we say emotion, we're talking about that response, and that response can be physical, can be behavioral, can be, feelings. That response to either an internal or external event. That's what we call emotion, right? So it could be you crying, it could be you laughing. Those are all expressions of emotion. Intelligence is that mental capacity to take knowledge, acquire knowledge, and apply it to everyday life situations. That it can also be referred to as that how fast you're able to take knowledge and apply it to solving the knotty issues of life. That's intelligence. So if you combine both of them, emotional intelligence simply comes down to knowing your emotions, knowing the emotions of other people, and ensuring that you're able to work with both emotions to come out of every situation, with a better solution or with a better outcome. Now, Why is this very important? In the workplace, in life, you would always come across people who want to get you in trouble. What the Paraguayan players were trying to do was to get Mbappe to get a red card. And one perfect example that shows exactly what they were trying to do. There was an incident where, I don't know, one of the French players tried to, jack or pull them or something, and the guy just dropped on the floor with hope that they were going to give a red card to the other person. So all they were trying to do, knowing full well that they couldn't stand the French team, was to provoke them to a point where they get a red card. And so every time you find yourself in those situations in life, how do you respond? Now, the man who is often referred to as the father of emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman, came up with 5 components of emotional intelligence. But for me, I think the first two are the most important, which is self-awareness and self-regulation. How well do you know yourself? How well do you know your response, your possible response to situations? So that's the first place to start if you want to deal with emotional intelligence. Self-awareness, knowing how you would react in particular situations. Once you know that, emotional regulation becomes the next very important component. How do you take that situation and make the most of it? Now, if you look at Mbappe in that video you saw, the guy was laughing. And one thing I believe is there's something he was telling himself that was making him laugh. It could be that he was saying, I'm so good, these guys cannot deal with me. They're just looking for dodgy ways to get around the trouble they found themselves in. And so I'll give you 3 steps that you can apply, or that you can help your young person, you can give your young person and teach them to apply when they find themselves in emotionally charged situations. 3 things you need to do. You name it, you tame it, or you reframe it. Now, taming it can come before reframing in some situations, and reframing can come before taming in some situations. Now, what do I mean by these 3 things? Naming it means when you find yourself in a situation, you need to tell yourself the exact emotion you're feeling at that time. Is it anger? Is it embarrassment? Is it frustration? What exactly are you feeling? Now, once you name it, depending on the situation, the next step could be to tame it. And there are practical things you could do. I've done a video previously. I'll link the video up there now, where you'd learn how to apply things like box breathing, or maybe just taking a walk, or just pausing. There are things you could do to tame the emotion. But there might be situations where you need to actually reframe the situation so that you can tame it. And what do I mean by reframing? So, like I said, in that Mbappe's case, I suspect that he may have told himself that these guys are just hating on how good I am, and that's why this is happening. Now, that reframing alone would provoke a different reaction from you saying to yourself that these guys are trying to take advantage of me, they're trying to cheat me. That's going to provoke anger, and that's going to cause you to maybe headbutt somebody and get into trouble. So, reframe the situation. You're being bullied, people are laughing at you, or doing something to your teenager. Tell them, could it be that those guys are looking at him and thinking, he's too good and we can't get to him, so let's just provoke him. Now, that reframing alone can influence or affect how you react to that situation. So, point number 2, train responsibility, discipline, and life skills. Responsibility, what does that mean exactly? Being responsible simply means knowing and understanding that your actions, your choices, your behavior, your duty actually matters. And not just that they matter, also understanding that you need to do those things without being forced or being pressured or being reminded to do them. The next thing is discipline. What exactly do I mean by discipline? Discipline simply means being able to do what you have to do, irrespective of how you feel. Waking up feeling like not doing anything, but understanding that you have to do something. It's discipline that drags you through those difficult situations and forces you to act when it doesn't feel like you should. And life skills. Life skills, by definition, I think one of the best definitions of life skills that I've found is acquiring those skills that would help you to be adaptable, to help you to walk through the daily challenges and troubles of life without being held back. Now, putting all of these three things together, what I'm simply saying as point number two is you need to build a young person who knows what they have to do, does what they have to do irrespective of what life throws at them, and consciously developing the skills, communication skills, thinking skills, adaptability, all of those skills, relationship building, all of those skills that would help them go through these things in life without stopping. Now, these skills have to be built early. Very, very early. And the best way to do some of these things is, so with responsibility, the only way for a young person to actually build responsibility is by giving them the opportunity. Start allowing them to take decisions early. Give them daily tasks at home, like things like doing the dishes, things that would require them to act and take decisions. Give them these opportunities. When they run into trouble sometimes, don't just dive in like that helicopter parent trying to solve it for them. Let them try to deal with the situation sometimes. Give them money and let's see how they spend it. Don't quickly reply to some emails. Allow them to reply to certain emails by themselves. And responsibility doesn't just end with doing things. It also stretches to the fact that when things go wrong, you need to own them and say, this is what I have done. I am sorry. If you need to say you're sorry. So give them the opportunity to be responsible. Discipline. I saw this story a couple of days ago, and I didn't know exactly what to say about it. I read it on a paper where a mom was proudly saying that whenever her 5-year-old child doesn't feel like going to school, she let them stay. And she was arguing for how good that is and how that helps them to grow well. And I was like, I'm a bit confused. I understand that there might be situations where your young person wouldn't want to go to school and you would agree with them. But if we allow young people to do only what they want to do, what life are we building them for? So discipline is being able to set clear boundaries for your young person, where when they do not feel like doing something, you give them that nudge, that push, that incentive to go over the bar. So for instance, there's an assignment. They need to get it done. They might not feel like doing it. What you can do is to create a clear time frame and say, okay, do this, do the dishes, do this, do that. We're going to set aside 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. for you to do that assignment. You can sit with them and watch them do it. You can remind them to do it. So create an enabling environment, but ensure that the boundaries are clearly stated. For life skills, just go out there and get them. There are things you need to do to be able to communicate effectively. There are things you need to do to be more resilient. Number 3, you need to teach them digital wisdom. In today's world, so we've got things like AI, online presence, communication online, video editing and posting, social media content creation, using tech devices effectively. It will be practically impossible for your young person to grow up into a well-rounded, successful person without being tech savvy, understanding these things. Now, there has to be a clear balance between when your young person is using tech to learn how to use tech and when they are using it as a way of entertainment. So it is possible for you not to give your young person a social media, but still give them access to phones and to computers and everything they need to build those skills that they actually need. A well-rounded adult needs to know how to use technology wisely, safely, and productively. So those are the keywords: wisely, safely, and productively. And here are just a few things that you can use as a guide when you're leading them on this path. Number 1, attention control. Knowing when to put the phone down. Knowing when to drop the tablets, the computer, whatever it is they're using, and saying, we've had enough today. And to do that, it could just be clear timetables that you enforce strictly. Next is online safety, things like privacy. The fact that there are wicked people online who are trying to scam people, who are trying to do a lot of bad things online. You need to help them understand the concept of online safety. Things like harmful content, cyberbullying, All of these things are knowledge and things that your young person needs to really understand. Something else that is important is critical thinking. There's so much information out there today. You young person needs to learn how to differentiate between fake news, AI doctored videos, and real information. In fact, that's one of the most important things that every young person needs to acquire in this age and time. We're getting to that point now where facts and fiction, the line between them is so blurred now that it's difficult to tell them apart. And so it's important for a young person to be able to look at certain information and say, nah, this is fiction. This is some dreamland creation from somewhere. This Mbappe's thing I was talking about, I saw some videos of him wearing military attire. And initially when I saw it, it looked so real. But after a closer look, I realized, well, it's an AI generated video. And as crazy as the world is, before truth puts on its trousers, lie would have gone around the world a couple of times. So they need to be quick in getting what is true and what is false. Something else that I think is very important that people don't really talk about is digital reputation. Your young person needs to understand that their behavior online today might affect their future. The things they post about themselves today might have long-term impact on the things they end up doing. And we've seen politicians lose their career. We've seen individuals get into trouble for things they posted several years ago. And what young people need to understand, your thinking, your position on issues would change with time. When that emotion is high and you're feeling like this is really bad, you might just go on and post something that you would regret a couple of years from now. And oftentimes when things go online, they stay online forever. It just takes the skill to be able to dig them up. Oftentimes, if people search long enough, they'll be able to dig things up. So it is important for your young person to know the concept and understand the concept of digital reputation. Better to avoid posting anything at all whatsoever, because you would look back at some of the things some of the opinions you had a couple of years ago and be like, was that really me? And that can affect your future substantially. The other thing you can use to guide them here is, productive use of technology. They can start using AI to produce stuff. They can start using, social media platforms to produce content that would actually generate money, educational videos, community engagements online, things that are useful. They need to understand that these tech devices they have are tools that they can use to be productive rather than just things for entertainment. One useful question you can always ask your young person is, what did your tech device, could be phone, computer, what did your device help you improve, achieve, or create today? You can always make that a question that you ask your young person every close of the day. So apply these three things and you would end up with a teenager who is ready to grow into an adult that is emotionally intelligent, knows how to handle situations and get out of it scot-free, who is responsible, knows how to hold their end of the bargain, and a young person who understands how technology works and is able to apply them productively. I know you found this video very helpful, so I'll encourage you to hit the subscribe and the follow button, because every week our promise to you is to keep uploading well-researched, evidence-based content that will transform your teenager's life, will help them grow into well-rounded adults, and would make your parenting experience enjoyable. Also, I'd like you to share and like and comment so you can get this video to other people. The comment section, I'd like you to just tell me, what do you think are the main skills or qualities that your young person needs to develop to become a well-rounded adult? What exactly are you struggling to build in them, knowing full well that it will help them to become successful adults? I'd like to hear from you. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.